Compiling an academic CV as an undergrad can seem like a really intimidating process, especially if you're not clear on what the purpose of a CV is. And so I'm going to clarify some of that today and tell you some of the major sections that should come in an academic CV and some tips as to how to structure this document. First, hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Klebe and I'm an admissions expert at BMO. So an academic CV is a lot like a resume, except in a resume, you're prioritizing your work experience. And in a CV or curriculum vitae, you are emphasizing your education. So in a standard resume, generally education will come in, but it'll be pretty far down the document. On the other hand, a CV flips that. Your general employment is, part of your CV, but it comes much further down. The first thing is going to be your formal education. So I'm just going to look over my CV and sort of tell you what the categories are that I utilize. Some of these might be applicable to you, some of them might not yet if you're still really early in your academic career, but it's a great way of just understanding how to deal with this. So the look of a CV is pretty much the same as a resume. And you can Google and find some really great and easy to use templates if you want. At the top should have your name and your contact information. And then the very next thing is going to be your formal education, your degrees, if you've completed degrees, or just, your what you're doing in your undergrad right now, and your high school information. All information in the CV should be in chronological order with the most recent thing first. So for myself, I have a PhD, a master's, and a bachelor's. So the very first thing after my name at the top of my CV is, there's the label for education, and then under that is the information about my PhD, then the information about my MA, and then my information about my bachelor's. So you should include the institution where you got the degree, the name of your degree, and what your degree was in, the year that you graduated, and any other pertinent information. So for my undergrad entry, I have all of that. I have the name of my degree supervisor, as well as the areas of concentration that I focused on within the discipline. Once you get to the point where you have multiple higher education degrees, you don't need to keep your high school anymore. But if you're just starting out, keep your high school education as part of that. So, overall, the entire purpose of the CV is to act as proof, essentially, of your academic qualifications. And so that's how we should think about the information that we're presenting, and even the order in which we're presenting it. Obviously, those formalized educational components are the strongest evidence for your academic success. After that would come publications, especially peer-reviewed publications. This demonstrates that scholars in the field have looked at your work, evaluated it, and considered it a worthy contribution to the broader scholarly literature. So again, starting with the most recent, if you have a publication, you would include, or if you have multiple publications as well, you would start by listing the most recent one, giving the title of the publication. If there were any co-authors, you would want to include them. Where it was published, usually either a book or a journal, so the name of the book or the name of the journal. If it was a book, you would include the publisher. If it's a journal, you would include the volume and issue, and then the year in which it was published. So basic bibliographical type information. So again, you would list all of those. Next would be presentations, so conference presentations and things like that. Again, thinking of proof for your academic qualifications. This shows that you have been invited or accepted at big academic events where your ideas were displayed to others. So again, starting with the most recent, giving the title, where it was presented, the name of the conference, the location of the conference, usually just at least the city, and then the date. If you don't have the exact date or don't remember, just the month and year is fine. Following that, you want to list any awards, particularly monetary awards, grants, scholarships, and things like that. If you've received honorifics of some kind that don't have a monetary component, after awards you can include a line for an entry for honors and put those there. But monetary awards should be on their own, since again, thinking about proof, the fact that your scholarship has been funded in some way is a good way of demonstrating that it has value. So you would give the name of the institution, the name of the grant or award that you received, and then an indication of how much it was, followed by the year or years it was granted. So if you had, say, a grant that was just something you got once, you would say that it was, I'm just making up numbers, a $5,000 1-year non-renewable award. If, on the other hand, you got something where, say, you got $5,000 a year every year for 3 years, then you would say $5,000 per annum, 2015 to 2018. So again, as always, start with the most recent and work your way back in time. Next would be a spot for any academic employment. Academic employment means being employed generally by a university doing specifically academic work. So if you've taught any courses, if you've worked as a TA or worked as a marking or grading assistant for courses, those would be academic employment. If you worked at the campus general store, that's not an academic employment, even though it's a job at a university paid by the university. That wouldn't be an academic job. So you give the name of the institution, the name of your title, very similar to a resume at this point, the city, the years that you worked there, and then the name of the course or courses that you worked, and maybe some description of your duties, depending on what it is that you actually did. After that, if you have any specific professional development that you've done, for example, going to workshops or something like that, you would want to list that. So you don't have to, you wouldn't list your courses here necessarily, but more if you've gone to specialized writing workshops or any kind of on-campus workshop that isn't a course, it's not an ongoing thing, it's just something you go to voluntarily, you can include that there. And following that, that's where you would want to then include any other employment, so non-academic employment. Again, very similarly to just a standard resume. After that, if you have other academic contributions, if you've done some kind of work or made some kind of contribution that wasn't paid and that didn't really fit under any of those other categories, you could put that there. So for example, I worked as an editor and a copy editor for a few journals, and so that is under other academic contributions for me. It's not work that I got paid for. You don't get paid for that, unfortunately, but it's still important academic work that I did, so I want that included. Next, university service. So any work that you have done voluntarily for the university. So if you've been on any committees, search committee, steering committee, student associations, any clubs and things like that on campus that you've participated in, or in particular that you've had leadership positions in, that can all go under university service. So this is sort of like things that you've done voluntarily for the university and for the university community. Next, public service, any public service that you have done. So this would be if you have any, volunteers, community service, things like that would go under public service. Again, same as all of the others, giving the name of the organization, if relevant, the name of your actual role, the year or years that you did this, and any small details about what you've contributed through that role. And then finally, at the end, you want your academic references. And by that, I mean people who have agreed to write letters of recommendation for you or who have offered to support your application in some other way. Giving their name, their title, and some contact information is really useful in case the admissions committee wants to contact them and follow up with them in some way. So, Again, once you break it down and understand the purpose of an academic CV, regardless of what stage you're at in your education, it isn't very complicated. It can seem really intimidating at first, but it's just essentially an academic resume that prioritizes your academic contributions instead of sort of pushing them down and leaving them for the end. Again, you can Google some really great and easy to use templates, and that will just help you make sure that everything stays nice and tidy and organized. And my kitten is waking up behind me, so that means it's time for me to go. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video and that it was helpful. If so, please do go ahead, like it, share it with a friend who might benefit from it. Be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss any great videos like this. Follow us on Facebook and look for us on a variety of social media. If you'd like us to help you, click the link that should appear either above or below this video to see our programs and schedule your free initial consultation. We'll set you up with one of our admissions experts to answer any questions you might have and get you started on your preparations. We have programs to suit any of your needs, and we are always happy to work with you to see which program will support you and your goals most effectively. As ever, thank you so much for your time. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.